Good evening. Hello, hello, and hello. Blue Wave. Those are adorable little emotes you got there. Very, very cute. I hope you're well. Hope everybody's doing good. And what's that? New sunglasses? Why, yes. Yes, I do have new sunglasses. They're polarized. And they're just one of the 5 options of sunglasses you can get down below in my About section. Shockingly enough. Hi, Hicks. How are you? How was your day? I gotta tell you, it's getting really difficult to wait until March 9th to have kidney stone surgery because my back, oof, not happy. Not happy at all. But anyway, I can complain about that all day, but we're not here to listen to me complain about that. I just posted a link to the jigsaw puzzle you see on screen. It's an adorable puzzle. I like it a lot. As you can see there, if you hover over the picture icon, you can see what the puzzle will turn into once it's finished. I'm good. Day was fine. Sorry to hear about your back. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. There's not much I can do about it. Not yet, anyway. I'm doing my best. And my voice will be deteriorating as we go on, but I have my tea. And if it gets really painful, I've got my throat thingies, lozengers, whatever you want to call them, extra strength. So I can pop one of those in my mouth too. But yeah, let's pop these off. These are really, they're very well made sunglasses too. They're polarized, as I mentioned. I don't know if camera's gonna focus on that or not, but they're very comfortable. So yes. And I added my own merch and more to come. I've got phone cases, stickers, mugs, mouse pads, and soon I'm gonna have a really cool t-shirt. I'm having this particular emote that I just put in the chat redone in a much larger size so I can have it plastered all over the front of a t-shirt, and I think it's just gonna be freaking awesome. I can't wait to get one. I'm gonna wear the snot out of it. So that's in the works. More news to come, more updates on that. So anywho, do y'all want to do some Stream Raiders? Shall I start that up? Start the battle. Wow, this is gonna be an easy one. There's 2 out. There's 2 bad guys. So, don't hurt them too badly. All right. Let me do a quick recap on what we read last time, which wasn't much. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Reading recap. Okay. Oh, shoot. I'm a terrible streamer. We read a chapter, and I didn't do a reading recap for it. But I can tell you what happened. Just to catch you up, because it was pretty straightforward. And there's our author. Hi, Jenna, Dark Angel. How are you? So chapter 10, Jane goes to the festival. She goes to the dance. And the evening starts off pleasant enough. Everything seems to be going okay. She's having a good time until little red flags start popping up. For example, the punch has been spiked. She wasn't expecting that. And then her date starts drinking a lot of it. Like, starts to get really tipsy. And Jane's like, maybe we should go sit down. And he's like, yeah, maybe we should. And then all of a sudden, there's a bowl of punch tipped right over Jane. Because, well, someone used a magic spell to make it levitate and pour all over her. Bet you'll never guess who that was. So it turns out, as we may have seen coming, this was just a big ploy all along. She never had a chance. She was the mockery of crude jokes and ill will the entire time. But, oldest noob, hello sir, how are you? Welcome in, we're just doing a quick recap before we start reading. You're just in time. Thankfully, Juan was there, and he helped, along with his date, to take her back up to her room so that she could change, get washed up a little bit, and just try and sleep the night away so that no one else, so that she could get on with her life. So we're going to see what happens, because chapter 11 is called The After Effects of a Betrayal. So more to come on this turn of events, basically. And don't forget, if y'all want to do a puzzle, that's the link. Please do. It's going to be a good one. And, yeah. So while you guys do that, let me know if it doesn't work either. I can always redo it. In fact, can somebody click the link if you haven't already and let me know if you can get in? Hicks, I know you're probably on a workout machine of some kind, so you probably can't. But if one of you could click on that and let me know if you can get into the puzzle, that would be super helpful. I just want to make sure it's working, because I have a feeling I did something wrong. It's letting me do stuff, like I can move pieces, for example. Yeah, I figured you're on a machine. You're always on a machine. You are a machine. Anyway. Oh, okay. Well, the timer started, so enjoy the puzzle if you want to. Alright. So, chapter 11, The After Effects of a Betrayal. Sunday was the hardest day for me, and I stayed in my room waiting for Josephina to return. I laid on my bed, not wanting to move and feeling unable to anyway. I skipped breakfast and lunch, not wanting to leave the room and risk seeing Thomas or Betty Ann. Despite what Lena had said to me last night, I still couldn't help feeling insignificant. At 8 o'clock, Josephina finally arrived, her bubbly personality completely filling the room. "How was the dance? You have to tell me everything," she exclaimed, closing the door behind her. However, the moment she looked at my face, her smile fell. As soon as I looked into her kind brown eyes, I burst into tears. Josephina threw her belongings on the floor and raced over to me. "What's wrong? What happened?" she frantically asked me. It only took her a few moments to deduce the cause of my pain. "Betty Ann," she whispered. "At the beginning, it was everything I dreamed of. I felt so beautiful. Then, before I knew it, everything was ruined," I said. "What did she do?" Josephina asked with malice in her voice. "Start from the beginning and leave nothing out." I began with Thomas arriving at my room like a perfect gentleman. How the first half of my night had been absolutely wonderful. The punch had alcohol added to it by the 5th years as a tradition, so I only had a sip, but Thomas had more than a few glasses, I explained. He started acting funny when Betty Ann first approached me. I then told Josephina how Thomas had been a great dancer at first, and then everything had gone sour, just like the punch. Betty Ann levitated the punch bowl and dumped it on me. The worst part was when Thomas laughed along with her. He didn't defend me, and admitted he had only invited me because it was Betty Ann's plan to embarrass me, I said sadly. "I can't believe he did that to you. I wish I would have been there to help," Josephina replied. It was the first time I had ever seen her that disturbed and distressed. "What did you do after that?" "If it wasn't for Juan, I don't know what I would have done. He saved me and helped me come back to the room," I replied. "Oh, I'm glad Juan was there," Josephina said as she patted my arm. "How did he handle it?" She looked at me intently, probably wondering if Juan had gotten into a physical fight. "He didn't punch Thomas or anything like that," I said to quiet her fears. "Juan just stepped in and led me away." Memories of the sticky punch dripping off me made me shiver. "Hey, Julie. Welcome in. We're just getting started. Good to see you." Josephina rose from her bed and walked over to the closet. She sifted through the clothes until she found my ruined blue dress. Josephina held it out and inspected the damage. "Hammer curls, of course. I'll get to those here shortly." "Can't anything be done about it?" she asked, glancing at the red splotches. "No, Lena already tried to get it clean. She said a permanent charm must have been added to the punch," I replied. "You met Lena?" Josephina asked, as surprise lit up her face. "Yes," I said cautiously. "She was very nice to me." "Isn't Lena great? Such a good person. I can't believe Juan isn't trying to court her. Miguel and I keep trying to talk to him into it." "They aren't courting?" I asked, confused. "They sure look like they belong together." "No, but I know for a fact that she is crazy about him. It would be wonderful if Lena would become my sister-in-law. I think Juan needs to wake up and realize they're made for each other." Josephina said. I'm grateful for Juan and Lena, I said. Josephina moved closer to me and gave me another comforting hug. I'm so sorry. The time when you needed me, I wasn't there. I wish I could have been. I would have given anything to be there for you. It's okay, I said, gazing over her shoulder. Even as I said the words, I felt my chest tighten. I knew more tears were coming, so I moved from Josephina's embrace and turned in my bed to face the wall. I'm glad you're back. I'm sorry, Josephina, but I'm really tired. I think I'm going to try and get some sleep now. Josephina didn't get up from my bed, but as I laid there facing the wall, I felt her patting my shoulder as I drifted off to sleep. Alright, there's a kind of a pause because there's a time jump in here, so it's a good time for me to do the hammer curls while Gariki bans bots. Okay, 10 hammer curls coming up. Thank you, Julie. Okay. Let's continue on with the story. By Monday morning, my mood hadn't improved. Even though I wished I didn't have to get up, I hauled myself out of bed and got dressed for breakfast. Miguel gave me a sympathetic look when he saw me. Josephina must have told him about everything, using their telepathy. Force a hydrate, good idea. Thank you. I should say the same to you, Hicks, since you're the one on a treadmill or elliptical or who knows what. Probably on the roof by now, trying some other kind of exercise. But if you are, I would come down from the roof, please. Lena smiled and waved as I sat down, and I weakly smiled back. I just wanted to put my head down and disappear. Mostly everyone in the dining hall had seen what had happened on Saturday, and I didn't feel like being gawked at. It'll be okay, Josephina said, laying a hand on my shoulder as she sat down next to me. I continued to look down and slowly eat my food when a loud noise caught my attention. Looking up, I watched as Betty Ann walked into the dining hall with Thomas, a few of her friends, and Adam. They were all laughing loudly at something. I tried to slide down in my seat, but hiding under the table wouldn't have stopped me from hearing what they were saying. I can't believe you dumped that punch on her. Yes, she had no idea what was about to happen. The teachers don't even know what went on. The other diversion worked nicely. No teacher was present when you taught her a little lesson. Someone cackled. I bet she couldn't get that stain out of it. Her dress has to be completely ruined. It's probably the only nice outfit she owns." Betty Ann laughed evilly. I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up my tray and dropped it off where the dirty dishes were supposed to go before heading out of the dining hall. Loud bouts of laughter followed me as I headed back to my room to collect my morning textbooks. I dreaded the thought of being in class with Betty Ann. I was the first student to enter Gemstones 101. Mrs. Rowley gave me a quizzical look because normally I'd arrive with the twins. "Good morning, Jane," Mrs. Rowley said. "Is everything okay?" I bit back tears and nodded my head. I didn't want anybody to see me cry, and I didn't want to be pitied. "Are you sure?" Mrs. Rowley asked with concern. "I want my students to be able to come and talk to me about their problems." "No, Mrs. Rowley, I'm fine," I told her. Sooner than I expected, Josephina and Miguel arrived. Once Mrs. Rowley saw that my friends had taken seats next to me, she continued into the lesson and didn't ask again. My morning progressed rather easily despite the fact that Betty Ann was in 2 of my classes. She made snide remarks under her breath, but Josephina just kept telling me to ignore her. "Pretend you aren't upset. She'll leave you alone," Josephina whispered in my ear. Lunch was about the same as breakfast. When Betty Ann arrived in the dining hall, Josephina and Miguel tried to distract me as much as possible. Juan and Lena even sat closer to us. When lunch was over, Lena offered to walk Josephina and me back to our room to get our books for the second half of the day. As we began to leave the dining hall, Thomas stood up and strolled over. "Do you have a royal guard now?" We laughed, thinking he was being funny. "Go away, Thomas. You've heard Jane enough," Juan said, coming to my rescue again. "What's your family's obsession with the human? Maybe you should mind your own business," Thomas retorted. "Maybe you should mind yours, because Jane is none of your business," Juan replied. "You're a human lovers all around. Why don't you go and marry a human? You can have half-breeds whose magic ability will be below standard," Thomas gloated. "That's not true," Josephina burst out. "Jane's ability is better than all of your awful friends combined." "Careful, Miss Martinez. Your brother has already interfered where he didn't belong, and I promised him that was a mistake. I don't think you should involve yourself either." Josephina mumbled something under her breath, and then, very unladylike, she lunged at Thomas. One grabbed her before she could get close, but Thomas just laughed in her face. A teacher, Mr. Withermeyer, by the looks of it, was strolling our way. "What's going on over here?" he asked, looking straight at me. "This better not be the beginning of a fight." "I was just standing here talking to Miss Fitzgerald when Miss Martinez got hostile," Thomas said. Mr. Withermeyer's cold green eyes looked at me again. Juan stepped between Mr. Withermeyer and me. "It won't happen again, sir," Juan said. "Let's see to that. I would teach your younger siblings how to behave, Mr. Martinez. It would be highly improper if they can't act like a young lady and a gentleman. Miss Fitzgerald, I wouldn't start any trouble if you value your education here. I'm sure the Pixie government wouldn't be thrilled to know that you're starting fights." You three, he said, pointing to Josephina, Miguel, and me, don't be late for my class. Mr. Withermeyer stalked back into the dining hall. You should have let her go, Thomas whispered. That would have been fun. He left the dining hall, snickering to himself. Juan glanced after him before he turned to us. You better get your school supplies and hurry off to Charms. You don't need any more trouble with Mr. Withermeyer. Josephina, please don't act like that ever again. We all have started at the Jelf Academy, and you should no longer act like children. It's highly improper for a lady to act as such. Josephina mumbled an apology to Juan before we ran to our room to collect our books. We actually made it to the room before Mr. Withermeyer. Feeling as if I had accomplished something, I rested against the wall outside his classroom and waited for Mr. Withermeyer to return from lunch duty. It didn't take long for him to come around the corner, his black jacket billowing out behind him. What are you two doing down here? He asked, his lip rising in a sneer. We're waiting for class, sir. You told us to get here on time, Josephina replied. You shouldn't be loitering in the hallways. This is the second time I catch you up to no good. Don't let there be a third time today, Miss Fitzgerald. He wasn't joking. And don't get smart with me either, Miss Martinez. Mr. Withermeyer opened the door and entered the classroom, while Josephina and I just looked at each other. Why did Mr. Withermeyer always assume we were doing something wrong? Josephina and I went to our seats and prepared our table for class. Mr. Withermeyer didn't look at us again, but we could feel the tension in the room. I pulled my rock case from my bag and set it on my desk, ready for anything Mr. Withermeyer was going to throw at us. Every student who entered the classroom immediately fell silent. Mr. Withermeyer hated conversation in his classroom, and a violation of this rule led to severe punishment. He wrote on the board what we would be doing today. The agenda was taking notes on the magical theory of the next charm we would be learning. I didn't even mind the notes today because I wouldn't have been able to concentrate on making a complex charm. I began to settle in when, all of a sudden, something slapped me in the back. I cried out in pain and glanced over my shoulder to find Betty Ann smirking. Is there a problem, Miss Fitzgerald? Mr. Withermeyer asked as he gave me a dark look. No, I said, but I knew Betty Ann had thrown something at me and levitated it back to herself. Well, please be quiet. I don't need interruptions in my classroom, Mr. Withermeyer shot back at me. I shook off my anger and focused on the notes. About 15 minutes later, I felt a sharp pain on my back again. I gripped the table to stop myself from letting out a wail of agony. Josephina looked over with a questioning glance, but of course, I couldn't tell her. Was Betty Ann just going to keep torturing me? Just a few minutes after the thought crossed my mind, I felt the pain again. Unfortunately, a sound escaped my lips. Hey, Aaron, welcome in. Good to see you. Hope you're good. How was your day? What is the problem, Miss Fitzgerald? This is the second time you've interrupted my class. Would you like to enlighten us on what is going on? Tired of Betty Ann's abuse, I stood up, feeling braver. I would tell the truth, and I wouldn't let Betty Ann walk all over me anymore. Yes, I would like to enlighten you, I said, glaring at him. Since the beginning of class, Miss Barber has been throwing something at me. Prove it, Betty Ann chimed in. You are sitting directly behind me, and I cannot prove it with the red marks that are probably on my back, I retorted. That is enough, Miss Fitzgerald, Mr. Withermeyer yelled. This is the third time you have caused a distraction today in my presence. Get out of my classroom and go to Dr. Tweedle's office. I'll send him a memo about your behavior. I picked up my books and glanced at Josephina. She looked so angry, and I gave her a warning with my eyes. Then I stalked out of Mr. Withermeyer's room. I was madder than I ever have been in my entire life. No other teacher would have dismissed me from their classroom for something like that. Why did Mr. Withermeyer hate me so much? I headed toward Dr. Tweedle's office and knocked on the door. You may enter, Jane, his voice called from within. Not waiting for an invitation, I sat down on the pillowed sofa across from Dr. Tweedle's desk. I was so aggravated, I forgot common courtesy. Hello, Jane. You know, if your stepmother Marie could see how you walked in here, she would frown upon your etiquette lessons, Dr. Tweedle said, but he smiled at me. To what pleasure do I owe this visit? Dr. Tweedle stopped talking as a folded piece of paper flew onto his desk and landed. It was probably the note that Mr. Withermeyer had promised to write. Dr. Tweedle unfolded the letter. His eyes scanned over the page, and he smiled a little as he got to the bottom. But when he looked up at me, he instantly looked serious. Mr. Withermeyer just sent me a notice about some behavior of yours. He said you had a conflict at lunch with Mr. Thomas Whitmore, disturbed the peace, and interrupted his lecture, and he found you loitering outside his classroom. As you know, I'm supposed to be keeping an eye on you, and I'm hoping I won't have to add anything concerning to your report. I don't know how accurate the severities of these accusations are, but I am hoping you can explain. Dr. Tweedle laid down the memo and gazed intently at me. Where did I begin? For me to be able to thoroughly explain the confrontation at lunch, I would have to give details of the Saturday dance, and I didn't want to go through that pain again. Jane, the only way to sort out this situation is for you to explain yourself. Why don't you start with the lunch incident with Mr. Whitmore? You're negative of COVID and feeling way better? Well, that's good. I'm very happy to hear that. Because COVID sucks, I'll tell you that much. And folks, iBlueWave is the only one doing a puzzle right now. Please, help out. Do puzzle. Make shiny picture. Let's see. I couldn't help myself, but against my better judgment, I broke out in tears. Fresh pain racked my body as I thought of what had been done to me and Thomas's continuing threats. In addition, I didn't want any of this to affect my attendance at the Jelf Academy. It would break me to be expelled. Jane, what's wrong? Whatever it is, you can tell me, Dr. Tweedle said. Thomas Whitmore was the boy who asked me to the Harvest Festival on Saturday. We were having a wonderful time until Miss Barber levitated the punch bowl and sent it crashing down on me. My dress is ruined, and nothing can be done to fix it. Miss Barber does not like me, and Mr. Whitmore only invited me to the dance to make fun of me. After the physical assault, they continued to verbally harass me until Mr. Martinez stopped them and helped me leave the dining hall. The conflict at lunch today started when Mr. Whitmore approached me to continue the verbal insults. Mr. Withermeyer happened to notice an argument, so he came over to prevent it, but believe me, Dr. Tweedle, there would not have been a fight. I told him as I wiped my tear-stained face. How did this happen? Not one staff member reported this incident to me. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I'm wondering when it happened. Dr. Tweedle replied. I don't know, but I overheard Miss Barber's friend speaking about some kind of diversion. I have my dress as evidence, and I have witnesses. Please, I don't want to be expelled from the Jelf Academy. I will do anything. I sobbed. I believe you, Jane. Why don't we clear up these other matters before I take care of Saturday night's actions? Dr. Tweedle suggested. After Mr. Withermeyer approached me at lunch, he instructed Miss Martinez and me to make it to his classroom on time. We collected our materials and were early, to which he said we were loitering and causing trouble. I can assure you, sir, that Miss Martinez and I were calmly standing in the hall. I don't see how we can be punished for arriving at the classroom early, I continued. Yes, I certainly agree. What happened next? During the charms lesson, I felt something hit me from behind. It felt like someone was cracking a whip against my flesh, I explained. It was so painful that I uttered a cry, and when I turned around to see what was causing me such pain, I found Miss Barber sitting directly behind me. She smiled at me, Dr. Tweedle, like she knew exactly what was hurting me. When Mr. Withermeyer asked me to explain, I told him the truth, and he sent me here. I leaned back into the sofa upon finishing my story, and waited for Dr. Tweedle's response. He looked at the letter from Mr. Withermeyer, and then back to me as if contemplating what to say. I was terrified as I waited for him to speak. Would this trouble be enough to dismiss me from the Jelf Academy forever? Finally, he took a deep breath and began. About Saturday evening, I will have Miss Barber and Miss Whitmore come to my office for questioning. I would like to hear their account for the evening as well. Also, I would like to see your dress. I'll try my best to repair it if possible. I choose to disregard the fact that you arrived early for Mr. Withermeyer's lesson. Nothing appears to be wrong with that. I'll speak with Mr. Withermeyer. Now, head off to your next class, and I will get this all sorted out. Bring your dress to me before dinner. Dr. Tweedle wrote me a pass to Earth catastrophes, and I left his office feeling much better than I had all day. I hoped he would fix the situation. Once he saw proof that I wasn't lying, everything would be okay. Alright, we have a quick pause there, so I'm going to bring up Stream Raiders. This will be a very quick battle. Yes, okay, we can charm. Great. I think we could sneeze on them and they would just perish. Alright, boom, we're done. Good job. Easy peasy. Oh, I need the gold though. That'll help me upgrade some troops. Wonderful. Let's go for something a little harder, shall we? Yes. Gariki, how are you, sir? How have you been? Really? Are you not gonna work? What the heck? I swear this thing only works some of the time. Did it play? I didn't hear it. Did you guys hear it? That's so bizarre. And I'm connected. I made sure of it. Ugh. No, it didn't play. What? Oh, I think I know what's going on. Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, let me try that again. There we go.
I would really prefer if you would be quiet.
I was trying to clean up my desktop, and I was moving folders around. And I think because of that, the path to where the file is placed changed. And because of that, it's like, oh, I can't find the file. I can't play it. So, but Aronel, go ahead and do exclamation Atkinson. I finally added one for myself. So close. It doesn't like it when you do stuff, Aronel. I don't know why. Apparently it doesn't like it when I do stuff either. What the heck? I'm so done. I'm so done. Just making sure I didn't, like, do anything bizarre. Let me go to the... Yep, that's fine. Let's go to the files real quick. Alright, I'm gonna try it one more time, then I'm gonna keep reading.
You underestimate my power!
There it is, folks. Oh my. I couldn't resist, Gariki, okay? Could not resist. Thank you. Thank you kindly. Thank you. How's the puzzle going? Oh, not too bad. I'm going to post the link again. And don't forget, if you're interested in this book, there's a link for that too. Alright, continuing on with Jane and her day. When I arrived at Earth Catastrophes, Josephina gave me a look that meant she wanted to know what had happened.
I can speak in Japanese. Kawaii, kawaii.
That one is so freaking loud. Makes me jump every time. I gotta turn it down. Okay. It's a good thing there's a timer on that stuff. Okay. I gave her a subtle smile, but I knew it wouldn't be reassuring enough. As soon as class was over, I knew she would jump on me for details. Mr. LaRousse lectured on the weather again, but I couldn't completely focus on the lesson. Mr. LaRousse wasn't the best teacher. Some students couldn't even predict a day-to-day forecast. But at least I had accomplished that, and was now working on a monthly forecast. He knew his subject, but his explanations didn't quite reach us, I mean. Sure enough, when the class had ended, Josephina bombarded me with questions about what had happened in Dr. Tweedle's office. Are you in trouble? Did you explain that Mr. Withermeyer was just being mean? Did you tell him about the dance? You're not being expelled, are you? Calm down. I'll tell you everything, I replied. And while we walked to zodiac signs, I explained as much as I could before class started. Then, an hour later, I continued my story all the way up to our room. Dr. Tweedle is going to call Betty Ann to his office to question her, and he wants me to bring my dress before dinner. I better go down to his office now. I took my ruined dress from the closet and headed down to Dr. Tweedle's office. I was half expecting her to suddenly find it, and it was like magically repaired just in time kind of thing. But that would have been a bit torturous. I hoped that when he saw my dress, he would know Betty Ann was causing trouble for me. Lena had said nothing could be done to fix it, but Dr. Tweedle was a very powerful pixie. Maybe he had something up his sleeve to repair the damage. I hugged the dress to me as tears filled my eyes again. Betty Ann had been right when she said the dress was the nicest thing I owned. The hall outside Dr. Tweedle's office was empty, and I took a moment to stop crying. I didn't want to cry in front of anyone again. Raising my head and straightening my shoulders, I took a step forward to the door, but stopped short when I heard loud voices. I paused, startled, as I realized they were coming from the office. I was about to turn and go back to my room when I recognized the two voices speaking. Mr. Withermeyer and Dr. Tweedle sounded as if they were arguing. I froze in the hall and couldn't help but listen. The girl is bad news, Oliver. You should just expel her and be done with it, Mr. Withermeyer shouted. What makes you think that? She has done nothing wrong. I believe she's telling me the truth. I inched a little closer so I could hear better. They seemed to be arguing about me. She is deceitful and only wants to get others in trouble. How could you believe her? I can see right through her innocent acts. I still believe Miss Fitzgerald is not lying. She has no reason to. I've seen the people she's living with. She wouldn't want to ruin her education here. I gulped at the sound of my name. What had I done to make Mr. Withermeyer think this? I knew Mr. Withermeyer hated me. Sure, he treated everyone with distaste, but it was the way he looked and acted toward me. What had I done to deserve such hatred? Oliver, she is just looking for attention. Why can't you see that? She's playing a part of for symphony, so we will all forget that she is half human. I will not be fooled, Oliver. She should never have been allowed to attend in the first place. Philip, I do not like discrimination in my school. Though marrying a human is against the law, what's done is done. We cannot change that. Miss Fitzgerald was born. She has been accepted at the school until she proves otherwise. Ever since she was an infant, she has had an uncanny ability. Even you cannot deny that. Surely you have seen her participation in class, and if not, you have heard your colleagues speaking about her work. That is why I fought with Pixie government to allow her to attend, Dr. Tweedle said, defending me. She is not her mother. Mr. Wethermeyer burst out, and I jumped. Dr. Tweedle was silent for a long second. At first, I didn't think he was going to reply, but his next words were surprisingly calm and low. I had to strain my ears to make out what he was saying. So, this is what it all comes down to. Rachel Mikowski. I should have known. In fact, I should have known all along when Miss Fitzgerald first came to my office. I should have expected, if not anticipated, this conversation with you. It's in the past, Philip. Let it go. Rachel chose her life. Now get on with yours. In other words, Rachel didn't choose you, Mr. Withermeyer. So, shove it. It got surprisingly quiet in the office, but I could tell they were still talking. It was so low that I couldn't hear, and I didn't want to chance moving closer. What did Mr. Withermeyer have to do with my mother? I was so confused and disturbed by their commentary. Did Mr. Withermeyer know my mother? So cozy listening to Atkinson all snuggly in a fleece. That sounds very comfortable. Do you have a nice hot beverage too? I recommend black tea, a couple of sugars, and a splash of milk. It's also nice to have a voice that can actually handle reading for once. Or for a change in the last few weeks. I stood still in the empty hallway, clutching my dress, pondering what I had heard. I was so lost in thought that I didn't even hear the office door open. Before I knew it, I was face to face with Mr. Withermeyer. I was so startled I almost dropped my dress. Mr. Withermeyer cast his green eyes on me for a second. He seemed just as startled, almost as if he had seen a ghost. But he gained his composure faster than I had. Loitering in the halls again, Miss Fitzgerald? He asked nastily. Dr. Tweedle requested an audience with me before dinner. Don't let me catch you sneaking through these halls again, or I'll deal with you. I'll deal out my own form of punishment. Mr. Withermeyer swept past me. He mumbled something under his breath, but I couldn't make out what he was saying before he disappeared around the corner. Even though Mr. Withermeyer was not my favorite teacher, I still longed for his acceptance. I couldn't understand why he disliked me, or why I was disliked, and what my mother had to do with Mr. Withermeyer. Despite my new forming hatred of Mr. Withermeyer, I couldn't help feeling hurt by his comments. Would I ever be fully accepted anywhere? Well, gosh darn it, Jane, I just don't know yet. Because that is the end of chapter 11. Oh boy. Poor Jane. I remember high school. High school was hard. I'm enjoying listening as I just passed my 4.3 mile run and still going. Good job, Hicks. Just don't overdo it, but good job. Keep going, but slow down. How can you be, I don't know. How do you say well done and yet be careful at the same time? I drove by one of my old high schools this morning and in ATS, no way. They rendered it well. That's cool. Wow, that's trippy. You started writing this novel in high school. Okay, well, say no more of the details, Jenna, because when we get to the end of the book, like we've done with most other authors, I will have you on in Discord if you'll allow it, and you can tell us all about it. So, say no more. Ruin nothing. Me? Overdo it? Never, says Hicks. Poppycock. You guys are doing pretty good on that puzzle. Got all the borders done. Starting to work on the middle. It's gonna look pretty good when it's all finished. I figured it was a good option since we're all seemingly looking into the book ourselves that we are reading, feeling like we are there immersed among the pages. So, carry on. Oh, yeah, I didn't make a command for it because I'd have to make a new command every single time that we chose a puzzle. So I just figured I would keep it handy. But yes, get in there. Help them out. It's 400 pieces. Alright, so Jane has had a very emotional chapter 11. And now, it sounds like we're going to get up to no good again, because chapter 12 is called Palm Reading and Punishment. That doesn't sound good. And also, while we're on this commercial break, don't forget to check the About panel below. I've got some merch available, and these very cool sunglasses. I picked up a pair for myself. They're very comfortable. The only downside is, well, like everybody's experiencing right now in the States, shipping is a nightmare. I don't care what you buy, it ain't coming on time. So, are they polarized though? They are, actually. And it even says, it won't come into view, but that says polarized. You ordered a mug? When? I didn't know that. Thank you. When did you order a mug? I mean, I only have the one displayed, but Anyway, more tea, then chapter. Oh, that's so good. I have a love-hate relationship with tea because I'm a very good producer of kidney stones. And as soothing and warm and delicious as tea is, it also is really good at giving me kidney stones. So I'm Catchy Cat Megapeto. What? Huh? You ordered it this week? Well, cool. Please let me know when it comes in, because I've ordered one too, along with a couple other things, so I can't wait to see how it looks, once it's all done, so. Anywho, and I can't wait to get the t-shirt ready, because I am totally ordering a couple of those. It's going to be awesome. Alright. Chapter 12. Palm Reading and Punishment. Dr. Tweedle examined my dress and confirmed that a permanent charm had been used. I was afraid to walk into his office after that. Start over. I was afraid to walk into his office after Mr. Withermeyer had come out, knowing that I had been right outside the door eavesdropping. He didn't say anything, but I had my suspicions that he knew. Oh, the Catchy Cat emote. Oh, Cathy Cat emote. Gotcha. Okay. I'm with you now. Dr. Tweedle had called Thomas, Betty Ann, and Adam into his office to question them about what had happened. Thomas and Betty Ann received detention, but Adam was considered a third party, not involved, so he went unpunished. Betty Ann harassed me more than ever, but I kept my mouth shut during her insults. It was better to be the smarter person than ignore her. My only concerns were on my schoolwork and chores for Marie. Winter had come at last, and a thick layer of snow coated the grounds of the Jelf Academy. Christmas break was on the horizon, along with the midterms. I had much to study, and I was very nervous about the tests. As if that wasn't stressful enough, Marie had big plans for Christmas, including a winter ball. So much preparation needed to be done, and I dreaded going to the manor as much as I dreaded taking the tests. I wish you could come to our house for Christmas break. Mother always throws delightful parties this time of year, Josephina exclaimed. You're holding out for the t-shirt? I think it's gonna be awesome. You know that's impossible, I said. Marie would never allow it. I looked gloomily down at the dining table. I know, but it's nice to dream sometimes, Josephina replied as we cleaned up the remnants of our breakfast and headed off to Gemstones 101. Sometimes it's worse when you dream about things you know you can't have, Miguel pointed out. Josephina shrugged him off and took her seat in Mrs. Rowley's classroom. Today, Mrs. Rowley was going over the happy charm again, to be sure we could perfect it before midterms. Everyone took out their Pixie Dust cases and extracted 1 cup of diamonds. This one was the easier charms in terms of ingredients, but difficult because the diamonds had to be crushed into a fine powder. We had learned that diamonds were the hardest mineral. I found it ironic that the happy charm took so much energy to make. I also think it's funny that they're made of diamonds. Thankfully, we got to use our happy charms after they were made. I just can't believe you have to work over Christmas break. Josephina frowned. Don't worry about me. I'll have happy charms and quick complete charms on hand at all times. I flashed Josephina a smile, trying to hide my agony from her. I knew she would worry about me, and wouldn't enjoy Christmas if she saw that I was hiding. Saw what I was hiding. It was going to be another boring, stressful day with more talk of midterms and studying. In addition, seeing Betty Ann was never a plus, and just added to my already stressful life. Look who it is, Betty Ann exclaimed as Josephina, Miguel, and I walked into predicting the future. A dirty half-breed and her half-breed loving entourage. I ignored her comment and sat down, waiting for class to start. Miss Crescent glided into the room with her big earrings jingled in her ears, and a bright orange bandana on her head. She took her place on the stool in the middle of the room. Today, class, I'll be reading each of your poems in my office as a final review of how it should be done. For midterms, you'll be reading my poem and the tarot's. Depending on how close you are to what I see in my future, will determine your grade. I'll call you one by one to my office. Henry Adams, I'll start with you. A scared-looking boy, whom I'd never interacted with, walked towards Miss Crescent. His brown hair stood up at different angles like it hadn't seen a brush in days. His knees visibly knocked together, and I thought he would fall on his way into the office. As soon as he disappeared with Miss Crescent, Betty Ann began her banter. Poor Henry Adams. I hope he doesn't wet himself when he learns of his future. What if she tells him that his precious new puppy is going to die? I hope Miss Crescent's prepared if he loses the contents of his stomach while in her office. She snickered nastily. After a few minutes, Henry came out looking whiter than when he went in. Betty Ann Barber, Miss Crescent called. Betty Ann jumped up from her seat and headed toward the office with a smile. She didn't look nervous like everyone else. Even though I'm loving the book, gotta say goodnight, shower time, and have to bake birthday cake yet tonight. I'll listen to the rest later. Night all. Good night, Hicks. Enjoy baking that cake. You do make a lot of cakes. In fact, you bake a lot, actually, now that I think about it. But hey, you're obviously good at it, so thanks for coming. I know what my future holds, she murmured as she disappeared into the depths of the office. The rest of us sat waiting in anticipation for our names to be called. What exactly did my near future hold? I don't think I could handle more bad news in my life. Josephina and I continued to exchange glances, each of us with nothing to say. My relaxation? Well, good. I hope it is. After Betty Ann's exit, the room had fallen completely silent. I was left to my thoughts, which were suddenly interrupted by the calling of my name. Jane Fitzgerald? Broke the harsh silence, and I stood from my chair. Josephina gave me a reassuring smile as I made my way across the room toward Miss Crescent's office. Incense stung my nose as soon as I walked in, a strong, spicy scent that made me want to cough. I held my breath as I moved through the beaded curtains. Unlike the usual office, Miss Crescent didn't have a desk. She sat cross-legged on a satin pillow in the middle of the room, with another pillow positioned in front of her. "Come, Miss Fitzgerald. Take a seat and get comfortable. Let the calming scents wash over you and relax all your muscles. Do not fear the future. Embrace it," she said in a soft, whispery voice. I sat on the pillow across from her and crossed my legs in imitation of hers. Relaxing my shoulders, I placed my palms face up in my lap, in anticipation of her analysis. "Relax, child, and give me your hands." I held out my hands to Miss Crescent's almost like a sacrifice, hoping they wouldn't shake too much. A strong lifeline. Your past has made you this way. I can tell right here from your hand. This strength will help you in the future. Now, let's see what else we have here. A proposal is at hand, Miss Crescent exclaimed excitedly. "A proposal?" I asked questioningly. What was she talking about? "Do whatever you can to stop this union from joining. Your future will be very dark if the two unite." "I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. What proposal? What union? What two are you talking about?" I asked. Miss Crescent refused to answer my questions as she continued gazing at my open palm. "Hush, child. Only you have the key to your future. Use this information wisely." She continued looking at my palm, and I had a faint urge to snatch it away from her. Thomas and Mary Butt, obviously. I guess we'll see. "This dreadful event will occur in the near future, in a place far from this school. Stop it, or it will become a danger to your life." Now I was even more confused. A union between two people was supposed to occur at an unknown location, and I had to stop it because my future depended on it? It sounded quite ridiculous to me. Either this information was false, or I needed to spend some more time studying. "You will become close with someone who in the past you did not speak to often. When you are warned about this person, you must heed the giver's advice. Do not ignore this information," Miss Crescent said as she dropped my palm. "That was a fairly good reading, Miss Fitzgerald. Have a good day." I slowly got up from the pillow, perplexed by the information I had heard. What exactly had she meant? I let the perfume-scented room through the beaded curtains. Josephina gave me a questioning look as I left the room, and I just shook my head. Miss Crescent's prediction didn't make any sense to me, so I decided to forget about it and concentrate on studying. After packing my bag for History of Pixies, I left my room early and headed towards the classroom. When I entered, the room was empty, and I took a seat pulling out my notebook to study. It wasn't long before I was interrupted. Surprisingly, Betty Ann gave a jolt when she saw me, but it lasted a second as she replaced it with her smug smile. "Well, I should have known you were here. The hallway reeked of your dirty human blood." "I wish Miss Crescent would have predicted this," I commented, not even looking up at her. "I'd watch that smart mouth if I were you. Don't you remember what happened the last time? Maybe Miss Crescent should have reminded you of your past." I dare say that punch made your dress rather spectacular." Betty Ann sneered. I wanted to leap from my seat and wipe the disgusting look off her face, but I contained myself. I decided to ignore her in the hope she would tire of her insults. "This was one of the finest things in your closet, wasn't it? It was probably the nicest thing you've ever owned. I wonder what your mother would have said about it. Then again, she didn't have any taste. She ran off with your father after all." Betty Ann spat. "You didn't know either of them. How dare you speak of them?" I said, losing my temper and standing up. "My father told me all about your parents. Rachel Mikowski was the golden student. No one could have predicted she would sink so low. Apparently, she didn't mind tainted blood because she went and had you before she was killed for her stupidity. You have no right to judge my family, or verbally insult me," I shouted, losing control. I felt a strange pressure building up in the back of my head. It felt like a headache was about to come on. The pain was so intense that I wanted to double over. But I would never give Betty Ann that kind of satisfaction. If I could only relax, maybe the pain would go away. The moment I tried to relax the tension, I felt a gust of wind blow by me, go straight for Betty Ann. Her eyes widened as she was knocked to the ground. How had I done that? I stood in shock, unsure of what to do. "Betty Ann, are you all right?" I asked from where I stood, too afraid to move closer. "I didn't mean to." Betty Ann rose from the floor. Her brown hair had fallen in her face. Her eyes narrowed, and she gave me the cruelest look as she reached into her pocket, pulling out a handful of pixie dust. She threw it at me, laughing. The red dust exploded, and everything it touched burst into flame. She had cast a fire charm that surrounded me, blocking my exit from the room. A malicious grin spread across her face as she gazed at me through the ring of fire. Well, that's not very nice. Hope it doesn't get too hot in there. I'll see you later. Or maybe not, Betty Ann said as she left the room, leaving me trapped. What could I do? I hadn't learned a fountain charm to put out the fire. That was a second-year charm. Don't panic, I told myself, but it seemed that the fire was inching closer with each second. Tongues of flame licked at my ankles, and I grabbed my bag and climbed atop a desk. Maybe I could jump over the ring, but that seemed impossible when I realized the height of the flame. Panic set in as a startling truth settled in my head. I could die here. Why hadn't Miss Crescent predicted this? This was more dangerous than some proposal. The fire had reached the back of the desk. I screamed for help at the top of my lungs. Please, let someone hear me, I silently prayed. Smoke began to cloud the room, and I coughed while I continued to yell. Desperation made me consider walking through the fire and chancing third-degree burns. My cries became weaker after I saw no hope of getting out. Then, my heart fluttered with relief when I saw Mr. Collingworth breeze into the room. In my panic, I had forgotten about history of Pixie's class. He looked startled to find me on a desk surrounded by a ring of fire. "What is going on here, Miss Fitzgerald?" he asked. I noticed students piling up near the door. I picked Josephina's face out of the crowd. She looked terrified and she was trying to push through to get into the room. Mr. Collingworth was frantically searching through his desk, looking completely frazzled. I hoped he would hurry up. The flames were slowly inching closer. "Please, help me. Hurry," I wheezed as I coughed over the smoke. Finally, he found the Pixie Dust case and opened it to find the charm he needed. Mr. Collingworth threw large amounts of blue pixie dust on the fire and turned into water before my eyes. Sweat poured down his face as he tried to quickly subdue the flames. When he had finished using the fountain charm to put out the blaze, I almost collapsed off the charred desk, my entire body shaking. Mr. Collingworth rounded on me, his gray hair sticking up. "What were you doing? You could have been killed. Fire charms should not be messed with. You should know that, Miss Fitzgerald. I am disappointed with you," he accused. "I didn't cast the fire charm," I exclaimed as the class pushed into the room. Mr. Collingworth ignored my statement as he went around the room, sprinkling another charm on the burnt objects, repairing the damage instantly. After he was finished, the class filed in, and Mr. Collingworth motioned me to his desk. "I didn't do it," I reinstated, as I tried to stop my voice from shaking. "You were the only one in the room. Who else could have done it?" "It was Miss Barber," I exclaimed. "She was the one who threw the fire charm at me." "That's impossible. Miss Barber got sick after her last class, and she has been confined to her room. I received a memo stating that she was ill, so I knew she wouldn't be in the class. I don't know what you're playing at, Miss Fitzgerald, but I'm going to have to send you to Dr. Tweedle." He bent over his desk and filled out a note, which he folded, and then charmed to fly to Dr. Tweedle's office. I looked down at his desk in frustration. I was telling the truth, but I guess no one would believe someone like me. I left the room as instructed and headed for Dr. Tweedle's office. What would he say about this? Would he believe me? How could I prove that it wasn't my fault? Yeah, alibi? I don't know. When I arrived at the office, I knocked and was told to enter. "Hello, Jane. I want to say it's good to see you, but somehow I just don't think that would fit in this situation. I just received a note from Mr. Collingworth stating that you cast a fire charm in the classroom, which nearly burned everything. Care to explain?" Dr. Tweedle asked as he leaned back in his chair. I took a seat on the blue sofa and took a deep breath. "Would you believe me if I told you that it wasn't me? I was nearly killed by the charm. You know that I wouldn't cast something like that in a classroom without supervision," I stated. "Well, who is responsible for this?" Dr. Tweedle said seriously. "It was Miss Barber. She came into the classroom and started insulting my parents. I became angry with her, and I couldn't control my emotions. I've never felt anything like it before, but somehow I sent a burst of energy in her direction. It just happened. I tried to explain that it was an accident, but she threw a fire charm at me," I explained. "Were you aware that Miss Barber fell ill after one of her classes, and she's been in her room since? This incident is too severe for me to brush under the rug. Are you aware how close you are to being expelled?" he asked. "Mr. Collingworth implied something like that, but I swear to you, sir, I didn't do it. This school is so important to me. I would never do something like this," I know how much the government will like to see me gone. I looked into Dr. Tweedle's eyes, hoping more than anything that he would believe me. Maybe I'm just an old fool, and you are manipulating me. But I believe you didn't cast the charm. However, excuse me, I don't have any evidence that Miss Barber did other than your word. She already had an alibi, and no matter what you tell me, others will believe her roommate. I cannot let this act go unpunished, so I hope you will forgive me. If I do nothing, Mr. Colleyworth and other teachers will question me. Many already believe I've shown you too much favoritism. I'm very fond of you, Jane, but I cannot treat you any different from the other students, especially with your situation. My hands are tied, so I'm asking you to understand. Yes, Dr. Tweedle, I understand, I said, hanging my head. Just please don't expel me from the Jelf Academy forever. This school is all I have. I know it's not fair to you, Jane. You've already been through so much. I really hate to do this to you. But I've decided that you will take your midterms at the end of this week. Then you'll be sent home early for Christmas break, he announced. I looked up with horror. I swallowed the lump in my throat and shook my head back and forth. Please, Dr. Tweedle, I'll do 100 detentions. Please don't send me back early, I pleaded. My stomach lurched at the thought of an extra week with Marie. The casting of a fire charm is serious business. The only choices I have is to either send you home early or expel you, Dr. Tweedle explained. My heart raced wildly at the possibility of the other option. All right, sir. I see the predicament you're in. I will prepare for my midterms at the end of this week. Then, I will pack my things to start my holiday early, I replied. The other teachers will understand my decision, since I have explained your home situation. Keep your chin up. You should continue to class since you'll have less time to study for the exams. I feel so awful for putting you through this, but I have no other option. As always, I will escort you away from the school after your midterms are completed. I will still have to report something to the government officials, but I will do my best at pleading your case. Yes, sir, I replied as I stood to exit his office. Thank you for believing me, I said, as I closed the door behind me. Oh boy. Investigate, no questioning. Betty Ann's roommate can attest to her presence in their bedroom, which is her alibi, so no one will believe Jane. Nope. Betty Ann's got that place wrapped around her little finger. Tea. Oh, that's good. By the end of the week, I was packed and ready to start my punishment. Josephina was upset that I hadn't been treated fairly. On my last day, I was shown into an empty classroom where I took all my midterms. After I had completed all the tests, I went back up to my room to collect my belongings. Josephina was sitting on her bed when I walked in. How were the midterms? She asked, leaning on her pillows. Her brown eyes stared intently at me. Difficult to handle all at once, I replied. While I spoke, I picked up my small bag. I needed to meet Dr. Tweedle before dinner, so I had to be ready to leave. But you should at least ask and make her lie to a teacher. Yeah, Could be. Do you think you did well? She asked as she sat up. Hopefully, I said. Jane, I'm sorry that you have to leave early. Josephina started. Such is my life, I responded. Don't worry about me. Josephina got up from her bed and threw her shoes on. Are you ready to go? She asked. All I could manage was a nod. We exited our room and headed down to the great hall. Miguel was waiting for us in the entrance hall. Before I knew it, Dr. Tweedle had appeared at the top of the stairs and began descending towards us. I hugged Josephina and Miguel while I tried not to cry. I hoped I would see my friends and the Jelf Academy again. Dr. Tweedle stared at me with a somber face before he opened the grand front doors. We made our way across the snow-covered garden to the edge of the clouds. A starry night above us. A cold sensation came over my feet as I bounced to the descending cloud in the distance. I'm really sorry to do this to you, Jane, Dr. Tweedle said, breaking the silence. This is the only alternative I had. I know, I mumbled while I looked at the ground. We boarded the moving cloud and prepared myself for the drop to the bottom. Dr. Tweedle glanced at me. I lost my place. Dr. Tweedle glanced at me with sad eyes, but I didn't trust myself to look at him fully. I didn't want to burst into tears. It would be embarrassing if I were to cry in front of him again. Waiting at the bottom was Dr. Tweedle's carriage. I placed my small bag in the back, and Dr. Tweedle helped me to climb aboard. Once Dr. Tweedle was sitting next to me, he held out his hand, which I grasped along with the side of the carriage. I thought about the manor house as Dr. Tweedle cast the pixie dust. I shuddered as I thought of what I was headed towards. The next few weeks would not be pleasant. Marie would do everything in her power to make sure I suffered. When the dust cleared, I looked out on the dark gate at the end of the drive. Gray clouds hung in the sky, and I took them as an omen. The gate swung open, and Dr. Tweedle steered the horses up the lane. Snow began to fall as we came up the drive. The snow was thick and wet, more to the consistency of sleet. It pelted windows of the carriage, and I shivered. Dr. Tweedle cleared his throat, and I turned to look at him. Jane, I wasn't going to mention the trouble you are in and explain to Marie that it is the start of your Christmas break, Dr. Tweedle said. Hey, Shivy. How you doing? Good to see you. We're almost done with the puzzle, but if you want to see what it's all about, be my guest. They're doing a bang-up job on it. On my way to bed? Well, of course you are. Duh. It's late for you. How are you? I'm doing okay. Managed to find just enough voice to get through a couple of chapters tonight, so thank you for stopping by. Super late, yeah. Aronel, can you please do a shout out for Shivy? I'm trying to remember what I saw you playing last time I was in. Hope you get better soon. I am working on it. I'm definitely working on it. So, thank you. Let's see. Where was I? Instead, I'll tell her that you're one of the brightest students, and I decided to reward you by exempting you from exams, allowing you to return home early. Dr. Tweedle explained. Hopefully, after Marie hears of your wonderful progress, she won't be so hard on you. I doubt Marie would ever be that nice to me, I answered truthfully. At least she won't treat me any worse, and she won't know the real reason. Dr. Tweedle stopped the carriage at the manor's front steps. He hopped out and held out his hand to help me down. We ran through the snow to the front door. The house towered over me, and I felt small and concerned between the imposing house and the torrent of sleet. Or cornered, not concerned. Jeepers. Ah, you were back at Planet Zoo. Good. Gotta keep those animals fed. Dr. Tweedle knocked with the brass knocker. I shuddered from the cold snow on my back and the anticipation of Marie opening the door. Faster than I had time to prepare myself, the door swung open, and Marie stood in the doorway. Her gray eyes pierced right through me, and I was tempted to run out into the storm. She coldly glared at Dr. Tweedle before her eyes shifted back to me. "What a pleasant surprise, Jane," she said in a sickeningly sweet voice. "I wasn't expecting you tonight," she said, turning to Dr. Tweedle. I could tell from the look in her eye that she was uncomfortable. Dr. Tweedle entered before me, and while his back was turned, Marie grabbed my arm and forcefully pulled me into the house with an evil glare. I almost tripped over the doorframe and struggled to regain my balance. "We should discuss why you are here so early in my office," Marie said, pronouncing the sentence with authority. She let go of me and walked toward my father's office, her back stiff. The room was barely lit by the one lamp on the desk, and the red curtains were drawn against the stormy night. Marie walked around the desk and sat in my father's red velvet chair. "Have a seat," she said, motioning to Dr. Tweedle. But I stood in the corner. "I'd like to discuss the matters of why Jane was dismissed early," Dr. Tweedle started. "Jane had better not have misbehaved. I don't want to be told her attendance at your school is a waste of time. It was out of the goodness of my heart that I let her attend. I won't hesitate to take it away," Marie sneered. "No, nothing like that," Dr. Tweedle started. "Jane has excelled wonderfully at the Jelf Academy, and my staff is proud of her accomplishments. I decided to reward her by allowing her to go home early for her holiday break. You should be very proud to have Jane as a stepdaughter." Dr. Tweedle smiled. I knew he had said it just to spite her. Marie looked unsure of what to say, and she looked even more uncomfortable. Jeez, gee, guys. Good job. Well done. Good job on that puzzle. Such a great image, too. Let's see if I can get the explanation to come back up. Nope, I lost it. Yeah, such a cool puzzle. Well done. How did you find that one? Was it just right? Too many pieces? Do you want smaller pieces? Do you want bigger pieces? Really? A head pat? That's awesome. I love it. We'll keep that on screen. Good job. Colors mess with my eyes. Yeah, that happens to me a lot too. Well, this is a wonderful surprise. I'll need as much help as I can get for my upcoming Christmas party. I'm glad she's returned early, Marie said, as if I were only a helpful piece of property. Dr. Tweedle flinched as if he still didn't believe or understand a person could be so cruel. Was he still searching for some good in Marie? I was sure none existed. People leave pieces on top of pieces messes with me. Yeah, that can be a little disorienting sometimes. Now, if you could excuse us, we have much to discuss. I'm sure you're intelligent enough to find your way to the front door, Marie said rudely, dismissing Dr. Tweedle. Instead of commenting on her rudeness, Dr. Tweedle rose from his seat and turned to the door. I shall return for you on New Year's Eve if everything is well. Goodbye, Jane. I'm sorry Goodbye, sir, Marie said, cutting him off. Dr. Tweedle looked at me sadly and shook his head as he left. When the door to the office was closed, Marie turned to face me. I can't complain that you've arrived home early. There's so much to be done to prepare for my Christmas ball. Since you haven't been around much because of that school, I know exactly what I'll have you do. I think you'll be taking on the bulk of the cleaning. It's been so long since you worked for a whole week here. I've been extremely nice letting you go to school, haven't I, Jane? Marie asked while she glared at me from across the desk. I didn't know if she wanted an answer or if it was a rhetorical question. I hung my head to avoid her death stare. Haven't I, Jane? She asked in a loud voice. Yes, ma'am. Good night, Julie. Sleep well. What did you say, Jane? She asked, oddly calm after she had been shouting. I said, yes, ma'am. I spoke up. Yes, what? She asked. I didn't know what she was getting at, but she always played these mind games with me. Yes, you are extremely nice for letting me attend the Jelf Academy, I recited. That's right. And you will keep to your promise. You have a lot of work to make up for because we need this place perfect for the ball. I suggest you get started, she sneered. But, ma'am, it's getting late, I replied. So? How is that stopping you? I don't care about your opinion on the matter. I asked you to get started. Did I stutter, Jane? Do you not understand? Surely you're not that stupid. Yes, I understand, I said, nodding my head while I tried to control my anger. I did not need to do the same thing to Marie that had accidentally happened to Betty Ann. Good. I suggest you get to work. Surely you didn't forget the rules. What I say goes, and if you do have a brain, I suggest that you do what I have requested, she yelled. Yes, ma'am, I said again, and then bowed to her for added effect. I couldn't believe she wanted me to clean at this hour. I went into the kitchen and filled a bucket with soapy water. I began with scrubbing down the kitchen and dining room floors. When I had finished, it was after midnight. I dumped the bucket down the sink and decided to go to bed. I was exhausted, and I slowly climbed the stairs, anticipating sleep. Everyone else must be asleep by now, I thought. I could continue with the rest of the cleaning in the morning. When I reached the top, I was surprised to find Marie with her hands on her hips. She laughed when she saw me. You didn't seriously think you were done, did you? She asked. I looked up at her, my eyes feeling heavy. I don't think you're quite done yet. It's not time to relax. Get back to work, she said, giving me a nasty stare. Slowly, I turned around and headed back down the steps. I scrubbed the kitchen counters, and then dusted the dining room furniture. I also dusted and polished the furniture in the parlor as well. I was so exhausted, and didn't try heading up to the attic until it was after 3 o'clock in the morning. I crashed into the dirty mattress, too tired to notice how uncomfortable it was. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of chapter 12. Oh boy. Alright, it's me and Garuki. What you got here, archers? Are you going to stay up all night and watch her work? Yeah, I know, right? Creepy. Very rude indeed. Well, let's see how long my tank lasts. And that wasn't very long. Go, Karuki, go. It's up to you to save us. There's 4 of you and 21 of them. 19, 18. What is that? That's amazing. That's a very fitting skin for a war beast, I'll tell you that much. High ground has to go on archers though, so you missed. I thought the, as long as they moved into it, that's what mattered. Or did I misunderstand? I probably misunderstood. But that's okay. We'll get him next time, I guess. Alright, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'm glad you were here. Archers don't move if targets are and they were in range. I see. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Let's see who we can go say hello to. I don't see anyone reading right now. Oh wait, just kidding. Gentle Fox is on. He's reading. The Invisible Man, to be exact. So we might as well go say hello. Say hello? Say hello. Okay. Let me just put in a raid message here. Let's see, so today's Thursday, so don't forget we will be back at this with chapter 13 on Sunday. And for those of you that were curious, the sub-only read has moved from Saturday night to Monday night. So if you want to get out on that, make sure to be in Discord on Monday. Alright, thank you all so much for being here. I was glad to actually be able to get through a couple of chapters without feeling like I was gonna cut my throat apart. That was a pleasant surprise. Have a great night, great day, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And if nothing else, I will see you on Sunday. Take care.